What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some incorrect and correct ways to throw a football. Let's get started. Now, before we get into this video, fellas, we're going to be traveling out to 6 more states across the U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps this year. So check out that very first link in the description below. If you guys are local to Cleveland, Ohio, Austin, Texas, Seattle, Washington, Newark, New Jersey, Denver, Colorado, or Los Angeles, California, we are coming out to all of those states for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. So again, check out that very first link in that description below. Let's get back to this video. Alright guys, so how this video is going to go down is I'm going to show you an incorrect throwing technique, then I'm going to show you the correct throwing technique and what you guys can think about to correct the bad habit that so many quarterbacks have. Okay, so when I'm walking you through these different techniques, some of these might be the problems that you have, but we're going to give you easy ways to fix each one. So now, first things first, the first technique I want to talk about is the elbow pull. So many quarterbacks have this problem because they use it to generate power. And again, it's going to give you power, but it's going to be inconsistent power, and I'm going to talk about why. So when you go to throw, you're in a stance to throw, and you take this front elbow and you pull it down by your hip. So when you pull this front elbow down by your hip, the problem with that is going to pull your arm off of something called the midline. So the midline is an imaginary line that goes down the middle of your body, right? This is something that you'll learn, you know, if you take a kinesiology class, any type of class about the body, you have a midline that goes down the middle of your body. Now the midline serves as kind of like a teeter-totter, if you will, right? So whatever your front side does, the right side is going to do the same thing, but the opposite way. So like on a teeter-totter, one side gets more weight on it, what does the other side do? It tilts up. So when you guys go to throw and you pull this elbow down, that's pulling your shoulder, that's pulling your head off of this midline, which creates a disconnect with your arm, and your release point gets pushed up high. Now some of you might be thinking, well, don't I want a high release point? Don't I want to come straight over the top? Yes, and that's fine. If you have a higher release point, that's completely okay. But as a quarterback, we have to try to get to a point called extension. Now extension is a point when you release the ball. You see so many quarterbacks working with like different towels, different objects, whatever. The towel reps are for extension. When you release the ball, you want to extend right at the chest, right at the number, wherever of your target to be more consistent. You're trying to throw a touch ball, you want to extend at the top. Now, when you pull this elbow down and your release gets pushed up high, you physically cannot get to that extension point. You're coming down like a pitcher would in baseball. So if you let it go too early, ball shoots high. You let it go late, the ball shoots low. So we do not want to have that elbow pull. So what can you do to fix that, right? So to fix that, what you want to do is you want to try to think your front hand is eating a sandwich, right? Or singing out of a microphone, whatever it is. So you go back with the ball, instead of pulling down, let's eat the sandwich. Let's leave this here so my release point can stay inside my frame. Now, this is where a lot of people go, oh, there's no incorrect way to throw. It's just whatever works for you. And I get that. 100% get that, and I actually am a firm believer in every single quarterback is different, but there are mechanical efficiencies that every single elite quarterback has. I'm talking guys in the NFL, all 32 starters do, and that's what you should be trying to replicate into your motion. Now, some guys maybe don't have the best mechanics in the NFL. Maybe you don't want to replicate their motion, but you should never try to throw exactly like a quarterback, because they have a different genetic makeup than you, they have different body type than you, they're bigger, they're older, they're stronger, whatever. But there are key things that you have to pay attention to that they all do. And what all the best guys are able to do, you look at a guy like Aaron Rodgers, when he throws, he'll go back, this hand just stays right by his chest. He's not pulling down. You look at Tom Brady, he's like here, right shoulder to the front hand, because they know that if they pull this elbow down, that's affecting that release point. So a key way to be able to fix that, think eating the sandwich, think hand by the face, so that release point can stay nice and level. Now these next couple techniques that we're gonna get into, I would say are also some of the most common mistakes that QBs will make. All right, guys, now the second mistake that I feel quarterbacks will make with their throwing mechanics is this rotate and replace motion. So like, let's say, for example, I'm playing catch with the camera right here. I'm throwing to you, and I take back the ball, and then when I go to throw, my goal is to finish with my front shoulder opposite facing where my back shoulder was. Now, the problem with that specific mechanical motion is that will also pull your release point off of the midline. So for example, like let's say I'm trying to throw like, because when you're throwing straight on to a target and you're just playing catch, maybe it doesn't make the biggest difference in the world. But let's say this, for example. Let's say you're throwing an out route to the left side. You're a right-handed quarterback, you're throwing an out route to the left side. When you go to throw, if you take a step with your front foot and this front shoulder pulls open like this, what does that do to your arm? Because your front arm is pulling off the midline to the left. So remember, we talked about that midline. It's like the opposite. This goes down, this goes up. This goes wide. What does the arm do? The arm goes wide. And all of a sudden, we had this really wide arm slot coming across my body. And that's what making this ball cut to the left, miss behind my receiver, simply because I'm not disciplined with my front shoulder. I could keep my hand up and eat the sandwich as well. I could keep it up here, but if I over rotate, that's going to bring the arm across my frame, preventing extension. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. Oh, well, coach, I saw this, quarterback coach on Instagram say that it was good to throw sidearm. It helps you flick the ball. It takes pressure off your arm. And there's a lot of information out there about arm slots. Some I agree with, some I don't agree with. Here's what they've failed to tell you. It's not about sidearm. It's about extension. So many guys teach okay, we got to change up my arm slot. And a lot of people think, oh, it just looks cool. And they don't even know the science behind why they're doing it. They're teaching you to change up your arm slot because they think that being lower with the arm slot is a faster way to get to extension. That extension point that we talked about, right? When I was talking about this pulling down, you can't get to extension. This pulling open, you can't get to extension because your arm's coming across. Now, this is where the young quarterbacks take the info the wrong way, and they go out and throw, and they think, oh, well, I saw this guy on Instagram throwing like this, so I'm going to try it. And they're ripping open their front arm, their arm's widening out, the ball looks like crap. And I've seen it before, guys. I've seen it happen time and time again. So many quarterbacks buy into this info that they see without knowing the actual details behind it. When you change up that arm slot, and I'm totally fine with it, by the way, you have to stay disciplined with your front side. Because if you're going to change up that slot and you are ripping, you are going to be so freaking wide, and that's so much pressure on your elbow, and you're going to be throwing, and the ball's going to come off your hand facing upward. You have to stay sturdy with the front side. Hand by your face eating the sandwich, and what you want to think about to fix the rotate and replace, you want to think about staying level with your shoulders. So you go to throw, I want to keep my shoulders parallel to the target. I've heard Tom Brady talk about this before. He said that he would try to bring his throwing shoulder, so his right shoulder, to his front hand. So he would go to throw, he'd get back in his motion, he would try to bring his right shoulder to his front hand. If you over rotate, you can't physically do that, right? So he would go right shoulder to front hand, so he would stay level. And again, if you have a lower arm slot, cool. You're going to be able to extend. If you have a higher arm slot, cool. You're going to be able to extend because this front side is not flawed. So remember, we're not trying to pull the elbow down, and we're not trying to rotate and replace. We're trying to stay level to the target. Hips and shoulders should be parallel. Front hand stays by the face so I can have a consistent release point. All right, guys, now the next incorrect throwing motion that we're going to be discussing is the long strider. Okay, so now the long stride is probably the source of so many young quarterbacks' problems, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So what's the long stride? What do I mean by that? The long step with your front foot. So if you're a right-handed quarterback, that would be like you going to throw it, say you're throwing to a target, and maybe you're pushing off of your back foot and you take this really long, like baseball pitcher stride, right? So now when that foot hits the ground and your base ends up being super wide, and again, quarterbacks will do this because they're trying to generate power. They get back, they know that when they get to their base, their feet shouldn't start super wide, so they start with a little bit more like narrow of a base, feet inside their shoulder frame, but they push off of their back foot. Because again, that's an old school quarterback method. Push off the back foot to generate power. But what old school quarterback coaches used to teach was have the wide base, so when you push, it's not a long stride. But as we know, when my feet are wide outside my frame, I can't rotate at my hips. And that is how I lose power and put more pressure on my arm because I'm essentially throwing all arm when I'm not engaging my hips. So that's why quarterbacks will do it. They'll get to this base, they try to push, long step, then they're right back to that wide position, which can't have them rotate. Now, why is this bad? Number one, it takes more time because like if you're in the pocket and you got to hit this throwing window, especially when you play a higher level of football, but you have this long wind up and this long step, it takes a while to get that ball out of your hands. We can't have that. It's got to be a step right now. And I'm going to talk about how you can fix that in a second. But now, the other reason is when you step and your foot's way outside your frame and you try to rotate, your knee physically can't hold that. So you'll lock out, your back leg will swing up, all those bad problems that you see so many quarterbacks have. And a lot of guys will just say, hey, don't lock out your knee, or hey, drag your back foot when they're trying to get them to stop this problem. But they're not going to the root source of the problem. And the root source of the problem is the long stride. So what can you guys think about? You don't want to think about pushing off your back foot. You don't want to be in a stance and think, okay, I'm going to drive off my back foot. You want to think the step is separate from the drive. It's like works in two parts. You want to be here loaded. You want to step down. Don't step two, you want to step down. So if you can step down, stay loaded, then drive, you have the right hip rotation, your base is inside your frame, and you could generate power. So I get back here, I'm loaded, I think step down, go back with my hands, it's a quick step. Now I'm thinking drive because my foot's already in the ground. I'm not gonna have this long push, I'm not gonna have this long overstride, and I can limit it. So don't think step to the target, fellas. Think step towards it. Step down, stay loaded, then rip through. It's not a push to step. It is a step, then a push. And that will create more torque on your throws, make you more efficient, help you stay more grounded, not lock out with the leg or swing the back foot when you have that shortened stride. All right, guys, really want to thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to train with us in 6 more states this off season, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out. Our camps go all the way from Cleveland, Ohio to Los Angeles, California. So again, very first link in that description below. I'll see you guys next time.